And I think, I hope you'll enjoy what they say and how Proverbs says it. But, we call it wisdom literature. And so there's always wisdom that can be pulled from those passages. But there's only a couple of verses. But it has to do with leadership and what it means to be a good leader. So let me just read them to you. It's from Proverbs 16. It says, a good leader motivates, doesn't mislead, and doesn't exploit. God cares about honesty in the workplace. Your business is his business. Good leaders abhor wrongdoings of all kinds. Sound leadership has a moral foundation. Good leaders cultivate honest speech. They love advisors who tell them the truth. An intemperate leader wreaks havoc in lives. You're smart to stay clear of somebody like that. Good-tempered leaders invigorate lives. They're like spring rain and sunshine. So I come from the nonprofit world, and specifically a religious nonprofit. And of course, one of the major differences would be you guys receive a paycheck from your employer every week, but our people receive a paycheck as well. All of them raise their own support, and so. I think as a leader working in that category, both of us, anybody that has anything to do with organizations or business, you want an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Don't expect people to kill themselves, but we hope that together we're working hard to get the job done. And we both have a responsibility to those that we work for. In our case, for those who support us, and in your case, working for the fence experts. And even though, again, there's lots of differences, I think there's some ways that we're quite similar in significant ways as well. We both want to provide something for people, something that makes their lives better, makes their lives safer, perhaps even providing beauty for, in you guys' case, we've seen some of your work around the city, and it's been fun to see that. And we want to provide something for them that will add to their lives. And so the fence experts and YWAM staff, we all have an obligation to do our best. So, for instance, when it comes to financial and accounting best practices, when it comes to treating people that work with us with honor and respect, and doing our best to have clear and healthy vision and values for the things that we're doing. A few years ago, I did a master's degree in leadership at a college up in Canada. And those 2 years for me were filled with a lot of kind of aha moments. Had been leading for at least 35 years or so at that point. And most of the time, especially if you're pioneering something, we started in 1985 in Montana, had an old Air Force base, and staff began to come and students began to gather, and it was, you can look at this and you think, oh, this is cool. We have an Air Force base, dormitories, 27 houses. Big property, and our own water tower. I mean, big, and all looks cool until you realize none of us know what to do with any of it, really, And so we're trying to feel our way through and figure it out, and how do we do it? And so most of the time, as the leaders who gathered there in the beginning, we were mostly just praying our brains out, hoping we could survive and, pay the bills and see students come to nowhere, Montana, because we're way up in the northwest corner of Montana and all of those things. And so we're just saying, God, you got to help us or we're really in trouble here, So we're doing that most of the time. So when I went later on, 30 years later, back to school, which was hard enough in of itself, being old. But, you get there and you're reading more articles and books than you thought humanly possible, and you're sitting in classes, and it was kind of part-time. I would go for a while and so on, do the work. But what happened during that season for me was, again, these aha moments, because I'd be sitting in class or I'd be reading something, and I'd have thoughts like, that's why that worked. Some decision that we'd made, again, when we were praying our brains out, just trying to figure it out, and you made some decisions, and it was successful. We made lots of wrong ones too in the schools of hard knocks, and you learned from those kinds of things. But you look back and you could reflect on the leaders that you were leading with, and you thought, that's why that worked. I mean, God's really smart. And so people had kind of quantified some of the ideas that we were being helped to kind of understand. How do you lead people well? And what do you do with the staff? And how do you treat them in a way that they all have ownership in what you're doing? And so again, that time was really filled with those kinds of moments. And so as we look at these verses and talk about leading today, or leadership, some of you might be sitting here, as soon as I said leadership, you might have thought, well, that's good for Jason, or a couple of the other guys that are running point on the job. That really doesn't, really not necessarily for me. I don't consider myself a leader. I'd really like to challenge you on that for just a few minutes this morning. And say to you, not so fast. Because all of us lead often in one way or another. And in fact, this is one of our discussions we've had quite a bit. Leadership is not so much about a position as it is influence. There's lots of people who have position and not much influence, and you don't really lead well from there. Or often the reverse is more true, that guys have influence. They may not have a leadership position at all within some kind of an organizational structure somewhere, but they are leading for good or bad, depending on what they do. We learned it in school right from the beginning. There were guys, people, men, women who were leaders. Why? Because people followed them, not because they had a position, but they were the kind of people you wanted to hang out with because there was something about them that kind of led a group, or the guys that you hung out with. And even if there was a few of you that hung out together, there's usually one person that was kind of the leader of that. It wasn't because anybody nominated them. It's just because they took that role, and you saw how that worked in the relationships that you had. So it's not hard to see how in our everyday lives, we are leading all the time. Whether it happens to be wives or children or friends or girlfriends or co-workers, church, the list just goes on and on. And so these verses kind of apply to that because we're all leading. And in fact, leadership tends to be that shifting back and forth. There's moments when I'm leading, and there's lots of times when I'm being led. Even if you're the top guy at the top of the chain, it's happening all the time, especially in the lives of good leaders. So let's just look at those real quick and maybe grab some principles out of them this morning. The first one he says is that a good leader motivates, that he doesn't mislead and doesn't exploit. What kinds of things motivate people? What motivates you, when you think about fence experts and this job, or perhaps even other ones you've had? Well, I know Jason's been doing a good job at trying to have a clear vision. What is it we're trying to accomplish? What do we want this business to look like together? And clear vision is important because it really helps with day-to-day decisions. It's not just something that's up there on a wall somewhere, but in fact, the intent of it is so that you have something on the wall that when you're out on the job day to day, you can kind of cast your decisions against that. Because you're faced with decisions all day long. How am I going to do this? What do I need to do here? How do I need to respond to this person? Whatever it might be. When you have a clear vision, you can kind of, you cast your decisions against that, and it helps you to make the kind of decision in this part of your life that reflects who Fence Experts is, which is who you are as a part of this particular organization. And we can all have a sense of what we're trying to accomplish together. Values, clear values are really important. Every bit as important as clear vision. Sometimes they're harder to articulate and to put into words because, we'd say that's the heart. What's the guts of the organization? What's the things about that really make this the Fence Experts? Values support the vision, okay? And it's the why or the reason that you make the kinds of decisions that you do. Values are often things that you don't see, but you know when you bump into one. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but you may be, at work or you're doing something for somebody that nobody's really explained what's important to them, what their values are, but when you bump into one, you all of a sudden realize, ooh, there was something there. I just bumped my nose on that. I'm not even exactly sure what it is, but there's a value there. This is important to somebody, because you can see it in their response. And there's all kinds of things that you might bump your nose against. In this place, for instance, excellence. Again, knowing what I know a little bit, I think you guys have a high sense of excellence. You don't want slop out there. Okay? There may be people that do sloppy work, but that's not what you want to be known for. That you guys, this is it's on your logo. That you want to. This is a company that goes above and beyond. So there's a sense of excellence, or how we treat people in this organization, how we keep the shop I walked through the other day. I've been through lots of shops. We have a shop at the base. I have a shop at home, right? And you can't see the top of it because it's where things land, But in this shop, I noticed things are, they're put away. There's stuff that's there. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. It reflects a value of the company that you do that kind of thing. This particular statement will be worth the cost of admission this morning. I didn't make it. I wish I had. But it's by a guy named Patrick Lencioni, who is kind of one of my heroes, a guy that I've read a lot about. But he says this. He said, organizational health will trump organizational smarts every time. Let me say that again. Organizational health will trump organizational smarts all the time. You can have the smartest people in the room, but if the organization, if the relationships aren't healthy, people are with each other all the time, and nobody really likes each other. You can have the smartest people you want, and it will mess you up every time at the end of the day. And so where vision and values are clear and well thought through and communicated, you will find that people tend to like being there. They tend to like to work there. You'll find that they'll stay for longer periods of time. They're motivated to do their job. They often feel like I'm a part of something that's bigger than just me. This is not just me and my job. This is us and our job and what we're accomplishing and doing together. People will still be coming to work, but not because... Again, you can be in a place where there's not clear values or vision, and people will still come to work because they got to have a paycheck. I need the money. But it may not be a very happy place to work. In the end, there are really only a couple ways that we influence people. Love and trust, or threat and bribe. So you can think about that one as you're working today, but I'm telling you, it's the absolute truth. How we deal with people in every relationship that I know of. Just this is the place that shows the quickest, parents and children. Just stand in the line at the grocery store for a few minutes behind a mom or a dad and their little kid, and you will hear in a hurry, how does mom or dad get their kids, hopefully, try to get them to do what they would like to see them do. And it either is clear boundaries and clear love, and there's a trust relationship, again, as adults, that becomes more clear, or threat and bribe. You do that again, I'm going to beat you, all this stuff that you hear from people. And it's never going to happen. Well, unfortunately, in some cases it does. But even some of our friends, you're with them, and Renee and I, we're old now, and we got grandkids and stuff, and we watch our kids sometimes. They're pretty good parents, but we chuckle, because, Ben, you do that again, I'm going to, and I'm thinking, baloney. You're not going to do that. I know you better than that. That's just not going to happen, right? You're not going to get to, and you just know, you don't get to go skiing this weekend. Well, they're going to go skiing that weekend. You're just not going to do that, right? Actually, they are pretty good parents, but you get the point. And even in this sense, there's either a sense of love and trust. We trust each other. We're going to do, you trust the next guy. We have the conversations that we need to have, whatever it might be. Or you can be in a place where people are threatening and, or bribing them. Well, if you just do a little better job, we'll give you a better bonus at the end. Well, everybody wants a better bonus, but in the long haul, that's really not the best motivator. We all want more dough. I get that. But again, it's not just about the money, really. It's about being in a place where we can be proud of the work that we do and what we're doing together. And so at the end of this verse, he makes it clear that's why we don't, we want to do it in a way that is not misleading or exploiting people. That won't keep people for the long haul. The next one he says is that God cares about honesty in the workplace. His business is your business. This one's not so much about honesty in speech. That's important that we're honest with each other that way. He'll get to that. But it's more in the externals, the way that we're living our lives. Perhaps a better way to understand it is to think of that in terms of personal integrity. Moral compass. What's inside that guides my decisions? In other words, can you be counted on to do what you say you'll do? If you say, I'll take care of that, does whoever you report to know they don't have to give that another thought? Because when you said, you'll get it done or die trying, so to speak, that's going to get done. That honest day's work, if you will, for honest day's pay. Do you treat this business like it was your own? That's a good way to judge how I'm doing in that area. You don't cut corners to make it easier for yourself, but you realize that you're part of a team. And that what I do as an individual reflects on the whole team at the end of the day. If you were the owner, would you want people doing what you are doing or saying? If this was your business, would you want people doing what you do or what you say? And I'm not saying any of these things are easy, okay? Not necessarily easy to do, but if the truth be known, it'd be easier not to do them lots of times. It would be simpler. But what I can tell you is that if you're in a situation where these things are happening, it will always be a better place to work, both leading and serving. And the writer, again, goes on to emphasize this point. Next verse, he said, good leaders abhor wrongdoing of all kinds. Sound leadership has moral foundations. Abhor that's a harsh word. Even, we don't use it very much, so it's maybe not one that we understand very well. But think of it in terms of, what is the thing that you hate the most? The kind of thing that when you see somebody else do it, it disgusts you. I was laying in bed last night just kind of reading through my notes. I thought, what would be something right now? And if you guys have been watching the news, you've been watching this thing down in California, those parents that had 12 kids, locked in the house. Some of them, they found them chained to the bed. I mean, it was absolutely just horrific, You think, that just disgusts me. I hate that. I mean, how could you treat children that way? It's in the middle of a court case now, but when you get that picture in your mind, whatever that is for you, you're getting close to the definition of this word. What you would really, it just is disgusting to you. And so why does he use that kind of a word here? Because he's trying to get at something that's very basic and it's really personal. A good leader must have a good internal compass. Something that guides you. Because you will be confronted with so many options, so many opportunities, so many decisions, that no set of rules that anyone can give you will be enough to keep you. And I realize I'm speaking to grown-ups, but it's still true when you were 13, and it's still true today. Nobody, no church, and I say that advisedly. I know that lots of us, including myself, I didn't grow up Mennonite, but I grew up in a very holiness-oriented church where the list of rules was endless. And lots of it was trying to kind of help you as a young person make your decisions. But we all know that, I went to the University of Washington out of church. I mean, literally, I was not prepared to go to the UW. And all of a sudden, you are faced with decisions that parents made for you or the church made for you. And there's just not a rule book long enough to keep you in those moments. What can keep us in terms of kind of navigating endless hidden reefs is an internal compass that is set on personal integrity. Who you are when nobody's watching and nobody would ever find out what it is you are thinking about doing. Who you are in that moment is who you are. Pretty simple. And I want to be the kind of person, I'm certainly not perfect by any stretch, just ask my wife at the end of the meeting, but I want to be the kind of person that's making that kind of decision no matter who's watching, right? That's kind of the gauge, if you will, of personal integrity. And the writer's saying here again, we won't have a prayer for success unless we learn to hate, if you will, strong word again, doing all kinds of things that are wrong. Listen, nobody ever decided to jump off the moral bridge at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, as we all know people who have done that. That is not something that sneaks up on you and all of a sudden, oh my, how did that happen? Have you heard this? People say that, I have no idea how that happened. It's like, really? I was a pastor for a significant thing. You get some guy, and your heart's broken, right? You sit in your office, bawling his eyes out, and because his wife is leaving him, and you're sitting there, listening, and he's giving you this whole rendition of how he's lived his life and how he's treated his wife and lots of decisions he's made wrong, and then he'll say something like, I have no idea how this happened. I don't understand how she can, it's like, you want to say, seriously? For the last 15 years, you've been acting like an idiot. and you haven't treated her well, or you've been dorking around over here with other women, and now she's finally said, blow it, buddy, I'm out of here. And you're just so shocked that she would make that kind of a decision. You don't ever do that as a pastor, but you think it, right? So again, but you get this. It doesn't just sneak up on you. It's the little choices along the ways that I've been making, one after the other after the other. And then there's that sense of all of a sudden you find yourself doing something you never dreamed that you would do. But it was all the choices that led up to it. The next one, he says, good leaders cultivate honest speech. They love advisors who tell them the truth. Listen, nobody ever gets the prize in an organization for finding out all the things that suck about this organization, or that you wish could be different, or should be different. And come on, we're all human. Jason's not perfect, right? Sarah might be a little more close, but not Jason. So you get this thing of, we're all people. We're going to make choices or decisions about the company. You're trying to feel your way through this thing to figure out, how do I do all the things that need to happen? So nobody gets the prize for pointing out everything that's wrong. There's lots of stuff that's wrong. But how do we navigate that? How do we make it better? How can I be a part of making it better and helping to change it? The alternative, though, is not to just turn your head and look the other way and act like everything's perfect. He's hitting at something. How do you be honest? How do you step up to the plate with your boss or your coworkers and say, I think this could be better. Here's something that I've thought of that might help. They may or may not do it, but learning to think that way is really helpful for any organization. And I think I can safely say these guys are very open to that kind of stuff. They'd be very open to a cup of coffee and say, this is not working for me. Here's why. Honest speech, rather than over here talking to people, amongst ourselves, which is so easy to do, but we're over here, right? And we're talking, they can't do anything about it. They have no positional authority or ability to change anything. It just becomes griping, or I prefer the word gritching, which is a combination of two words, griping and another word, that go together. It's a little more effective, right? Again, Patrick Lencioni, he talks about organizations, and one of the things that's the baseline of any organization that will make anything work is what he calls trust. And that doesn't mean just like we blindly trust everybody, but it means we build trust within the context of who we're working for and who we're working with. Can I trust to walk out on that ice and step up to Jason and say, here's something I think could be better? That's trust. The next level he calls is conflict. If you can't have reasonably good conflict, again, I don't care whether it's work or home or anywhere. If you don't know how to have conflict, you will never move very far in your relationships. And Lencioni uses the term organizationally. He said leaders need to learn how to mine for conflict, like coal miners. You mine for it. That we all know sometimes when there's an elephant in the room. You know what I mean by that? You're in a meeting and there's an elephant in the room. Nobody's talking about it. Everybody knows it's there, and it's as big as you can possibly imagine. It's right smack in the middle of the conversation, but nobody will address it. That is as dysfunctional as it can possibly be. How do you get past that? You learn to take the risk of what he calls even mining for conflict. Don't just wait till it erupts, but how do you address it and talk about it? Incredibly important in an organization. Listen, do you appreciate it? Do you appreciate it when somebody, either a coworker or whoever's the head of your department, when they come up to you and say, I think you're not doing as good a job as you could. Here's some things I've noticed about how you're doing. Again, not dressing you down on a Monday morning in front of everybody else. Just want to talk about Jason this morning and how bad a leader he is, right? But somebody who will personally come to you and say, here's some things I'm noticing, here's some things I think you could do better. How can I help you do better? Some of us don't like that. It's a little uncomfortable, but can I just tell you what a gift that is to any of us? A couple of my friends over the years, I can name two of them for you. I call them some of my best friends. And part of the reason for that is that when I was the director, one of them especially, he He didn't do it all the time, but he knew it was an open door, and he would come in and he would lean over my desk and he would say, "What are you thinking?" Now, see, I knew he loved me. That's why he could do that. And I didn't get all, "I'm the director and who do you think you are?" Sometimes it was painful and sometimes it kind of hurt a little bit, but he was willing to take the risk. It's risky to do this at any level, boss or otherwise, to step up to somebody and say, "Hey, I hope you can hear my heart. I really do want you to be a better person. I really want you to be a better employee, whether it's here or anywhere else that you will go. I want you to be better about who you are and what you do, because it will always make you more valuable." And it's risky to do that. And you need to appreciate the risk. Two little things about that. Sometimes we get a little, my son would say pissy pants. Sometimes we get a little uptight, because it's like, well, he didn't say it the right way. He wasn't really, I wish he would have been nicer when he said that. Could people be nicer? Yeah, they can. And should they be? Absolutely, right? But another friend, a dear old pastor, he said, the best telling off I ever got was from a drunk. Just tore me up. He said the problem was 70% of it was true. See, and some of us will write off the whole thing because they didn't say it right. I didn't like how they approached me. Now, again, we need to be doing good on both sides of that. My point is, though, if you're the kind of person that will take truth wherever you can find it, no matter how somebody says it to you, you will grow like you can't believe. Take it where you can get it. If somebody is putting their finger on something in your life that says, "I want you to be better," or they walk in your office and say, "What are you thinking?" I don't care how it comes, but be willing to listen and at least take under advisement what they're saying. No obligation to fall on the ground and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm an absolute horrible." No. Humility, according to the scripture, is being willing to be known for who I really am. And being willing to listen to others when they're trying to help me understand better how I could be better at what I do, right? And so this verse, it says, they love advisors who will tell them the truth. Then he says, an intemperate leader wreaks havoc in lives. You're smart to stay clear. Intemperate here means the guy that flies off the handle. He's always just, you push his button and boom, away he goes. And he just says, intemperate leaders they're horrible to work with. You're always walking on eggshells because you're afraid you're going to say something wrong and they're going to fly off the handle. Again, I encourage you to grow in that area. Don't be the kind of person that says, "Well, I'm just red-haired and I'm Irish and that's how Irish do stuff." We just get pissed off. And we use it as an excuse. We can enter into so many areas of our lives with children or wives or whatever. People are afraid to really address us at any level that's significant because they don't know if they're going to step on a landmine. And he just says those are leaders that you simply don't want to work with. I love another verse, James 1:19, he says, "Post this at all the intersections, dear friends. Lead with your ears, follow up with your tongue, and let anger straggle along in the rear." Don't lead with anger. One little tidbit for you. I believe this is true. You can put it in your pipe and smoke it. See if it rings true for you. Anger in men is usually a hurt response. Somebody's hurt our feelings, and we get angry. And the reason that's true is because for men, ladies, you don't need to listen to this. For men, anger is the only emotion that is socially acceptable in a lot of the places that we grew up. Big boys don't cry. They don't get their feelings. Now, I'm suggesting you all come crying tomorrow. But you get the point, is that sometimes, just take a look at it. The next time you get mad and angry, as you get away from it, just take a minute to reflect and say, what actually was that? Okay? The emotion that got displayed was anger. But again, sometimes, that's the only emotion that's acceptable for men. Men get angry. I don't get mad, I just get even. Whatever it is you might say. Sometimes, again, we're not very good about putting words around emotions, right? I'm not going to get touchy-feely on you, but I think if you stop and look at that, sometimes if somebody comes and says something, I think you could do better here. Well, and you get angry. What is that? Well, it could be you're embarrassed. Actually, maybe there's embarrassment or guilt perhaps, or you knew you didn't do a very good job, but you're going to get angry about it. Nobody can talk to me like that. Well, really? So watch it. That's never fun to work around somebody like that. Right? And then the last one, good-tempered leaders invigorate lives. They're like spring and rain and sunshine. I hope you have had and will continue to have the joy of working with a leader like this. A leader that's not just a pushover or always agrees with you just to keep the peace, but the kind of leader that you can really mix it up with if you have to. But you put your arms around each other's shoulders or whatever you guys do, and you walk out of the meeting and you're still brothers. I've worked with a team like that for many years. I mean, we could get into a boardroom and we encouraged it. We mixed it up. Some of our young leaders coming in, their eyes would be like this, But I've told them, I said, look, if you're leading this department and you're not going to be honest with what's really going on in your department, you're of no value to this team. I need to know what you think about this. If there's things that are going on you feel strong about, pound the table about it. That's why you're on this team. And so we've had these, huge conversations at times. And yet they're totally perplexed that we walk out of the room and we're still friends. Well, that's because we're not taking shots at each other. We're trying to deal with the issue. And we feel pretty strong about it. That's healthy. I didn't have that growing up. I don't know about you. My folks did not do conflict. I don't ever remember my parents fighting in front of us in all the years that I grew up. Not once. I don't think that's very healthy. I know they did. They had to have. They were married, right? But I never saw it. So, and Renee, same way. So we never had any models for what it looks like when two people who are married disagree sharply. And it's taken us a long time to try to figure that out. We're still figuring it out. Leaders that are not afraid to admit when they're wrong, or that somebody else might actually be more gifted than they are. There's people that are way better at doing the things that I did as a director, even when I was directing. Can I be comfortable in my own skin and say, wow, I want to, you take the point on that. You're way better at that than I am. Leading meetings, I'm terrible at leading meetings sometimes. I get off on tangents and all kinds of stuff. And so everybody gets, they don't like to be in my meetings because I'm off here and off there. And so we had guys that were way better at leading meetings, but it wasn't threatening to me. We all got out of the meeting a lot quicker if they let it. They laugh easily, and they're not afraid to laugh at themselves when they make a mistake. They love people deeply, and one of their greatest senses of satisfaction is seeing somebody else excel on the team and shine. I can honestly say one of the greatest joys as a leader for me was seeing our young leaders shine and do a great job. Take great joy in that and having a part of it. It's that kind of leaders like spring rain and sunshine. And through their leadership, other leaders will be born and will come into being. That's the kind of leader I want to be. It's the kind of leader I encourage you guys to be. I love what you're doing. Only been around it a little bit, but